Maybe efficiency isn't the most important thing. Maybe all of these people who look at companies and then try to dissect them to find every single little bit of possible inefficiency and get rid of it, maybe they're not doing the right thing. Maybe all of these people who are just private equity investors are actually doing something to tear the value out of companies. Maybe it's not all about just how much money you make, but the experience that's provided to every single person who interacts with your community. Today we're going over Alchemy, Chapter 1, Parts 18 and 19. One, which discusses the overreliance on logic, and then the second, which discusses the doorman problem. And in these sections, Sutherland tells us that we have often developed an over-reliance on our minds. And in saying so, he's pointing out the fact that we are quick to try to quantify human behavior, the economy, markets, demands, all of these things. And we want to be able to put them down into one spreadsheet, essentially. Or maybe it's an AI model or some sort of calculator that tells us when we should be efficient, when we should be successful, so that we can better control our environment. And Sutherland's point is that, by and large, you can't do that. Because there are so many complex variables that exist not only in the ecosystem in which we are operating, that which we call the economy, but also within the minds of every person. Do you truly know yourself? Because Sutherland makes the point in this book that oftentimes humans don't even understand their own motivations. And if you can't understand your own motivation, then how are you to expect your own behavior? Or what contexts you need to move in and out of that you may be predictable to yourself, let alone get into the quantifiable behaviors of everybody in the economy. It's an impossibility. We're too, I want to say the word is ethereal, but I really think it's more like squishy. People are too squishy to put us into an environment in which it makes sense that we over-rely on logic. You can try, it's just not going to work. Secondly, he gets into this problem of what he calls the doorman problem, which I think is fascinating, because the doorman problem is this instance of an intentional inefficiency that's used in hotels. The doorman, if you've ever been to a hotel with a doorman, is a man, typically, who stands literally at the door of the hotel, welcoming guests in. And in a nominal sense, his job is to open the door. However, that is something that gets easily written out of the company because it's inefficient. Why are you going to pay someone $40,000, $60,000, $100,000 a year to open doors? And what Sutherland states is that there are so many other things that one person is doing. They're hailing taxis. They're providing a rudimentary security. They're also signaling the value of the hotel and making the experience more personable for everyone who stays there. By simply having a doorman, you're significantly increasing the value of the hotel because of the way that it is experienced. Your hotel guests will have a better experience with a doorman, point blank, period, full stop. It's the way that it is. Now, it becomes very difficult to say, hey, we have a doorman here, we're going to bring in X amount of money, versus we don't have a doorman, we're going to pull in Y amount of money. The amount of money between X and Y becomes difficult to quantify on a spreadsheet. And oftentimes, if you were to just pull a number out of nowhere, that number is not going to match the pay that you're going to offer said doorman. So it becomes hard to justify having the doorman when you're only looking at the paper. But when you walk into the lobby of the hotel, then you have something that is of value that you can feel and experience. Now, I'm a big Disney fan, if you haven't heard that for the millionth time here. But if you go to a Disney, especially the Disney World hotels, and by that I do mean the more high-end ones, and sometimes the economy hotels, you'll notice that they have doormen. They aren't doormen in the traditional sense with like the, almost military regalia and the hat and all that. But it's people who are dressed appropriately for Disney, who are there to just welcome you in, help you with your bags, help you check in, etc. Because Disney, in this case, is understanding fully well that they benefit explicitly from creating an environment that fosters memories. Because as long as you have memories associated with Disney, their marketing now lives in your head. They understand that. Saying that again, the entire Disney model only works because they're good at creating memories for people. So having a doorman then helps the environment, which helps the experience, which fosters more memories, thus giving them more marketability, all because that ecosystem exists. That is very hard to put on paper. That's extremely difficult to put on paper. And you'll notice if you do come to the resorts in California, there are no doormen. If you go to the resorts in Florida, there are doormen. Probably because you can pay people less in Florida. Now, this is my opinion. I think that if you are truly trying to make something that is compelling and causes people to want to come back to you, you are going to have to hardwire inefficiencies into your business. Now, every private equity person who has heard that, every financial analyst, every accountant is probably rolling in their grave thinking about what I just said. You need to find what things add value to the experience of working with you that may be inefficient. In our society, we have almost deified efficiency. Because the more efficient it is, the more time we save, the more money we save, and the better life it happens to be for those at the very top. However, just because the lives of those at the top are getting better doesn't mean the experience for the people going through it is any better. Efficiency then is an appeal to those who are the owners and the top tier managers of a corporation, and them exclusively. But if you want to make a better environment for everybody below, then you have to be able to accept that some inefficiencies will exist so that you can create a better experience. Going back to Disney, and this is an example I think would be amazing. They don't do it, but it would anchor in many, many memories for many, many people if they brought in flash mobs. Now, flash mob is the definition of inefficient. Not only do you have people that you have to essentially converse out of nowhere, you have to have someone to clear it out, and then they're going to block the way. And this is going to be, quite frankly, for some people, annoying. But for many of those people who witness that flash mob, it is absolutely memorable. And thus plays back into that psyche that adds value for Disney. You made the memory. The memory is free marketing forever. But you have to make the flash mob. And if you ever paid real attention to flash mobs, there is zero purpose in flash mobbing at all. It's as inefficient can get. but that doesn't mean it's not valuable when applied in the right context. Something to think about. Now, how does this apply to you in your gym? And that's a good question. Now, this is something that needs to be an academic exercise for you at your gym. Now, what are the things that would make your customer be emotionally connected to your business? And if it is inefficient, go ahead and count that inefficiency as a loss, because whatever that thing is that you can do, making a memory for them is going to pay off dividends over time, because ultimately they will remember you and your gym. Does that make sense? And that's something that's going to be different from gym to gym. But you have to do something that anchors in that experience as something of value, something that is memorable, something that is noteworthy, something that anchors your gym in their memory to allow your gym to come up every time they think of CrossFit. And that's an assignment I'm going to give to you all, because it can be anything. I'm not going to give you an example in this particular case because there are so many different possibilities of memorable actions that you can take. It is on you, your gym, your staff, and your values in order to create that thing which is so memorable. Now, with that being said, if you want to get introduced, talk about those possible things where you can create memories, or talk about what efficiencies you've adopted that may actually be holding you back, or brainstorm anything that's going to make your gym stand out in your market, in your classes, and in your day-to-day, give us a call at enochmarketing.com. We'll be available and ready to take your call to understand you and your gym better. Like this video, subscribe. Next video, we're getting into Chapter 2 of Rory Sutherland's book, Alchemy. It's all about the making of magic. This is Enoch Marketing. I'm Colin Charles, and we will see you next time.